Are you considering divorce? Are you dealing with it now? Are you on the other side and not sure what comes next? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show with your host, Lisa C. Decker.
Hello, I'm Lisa Decker, and welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show. I'm your host, as well as a certified divorce financial analyst, a real estate collaboration specialist in divorce, and a certified amicable divorce professional. I am also the CEO and founder of Divorce Money Matters and Divorcetown USA. And Divorcetown USA is proud sponsor to bring you this show. So we're happy to have you here today. And we are going to be talking about child-centered divorce all this month because January is child-centered divorce month. And we want to start the new year with a topic introducing new partners to children. This is a really sensitive subject matter, and we are very lucky today to have Teresa Harlow with us. She is has written a co-parenting book called From Combative to Collaborative, the Co-Parenting Code. And she's going to talk to us about, how to fix difficult relationships with your co-parent or step-parent. Want tried and true tips from someone who has walked the journey with success. Teresa's going to help us with that. And she has been co-parenting for over 23 years, step parenting for 15 years, and she's going to talk about her book today as well. She's also a co-parenting coach and family mediator, now on a mission to take collaborative co-parenting from exception to expectation. Oh, I love that. Please welcome Teresa Harlow. Thank you for coming on the show today, Teresa.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. We met at the Certified Amicable Divorce Professionals Conference recently, and I heard you speak, and I thought, oh, we've got to have you on the show. So let's dive right into it, because this is some juicy stuff, and we need to give folks all the information that we can in the time that we have. So tell me, Teresa, at what point in a new relationship should you introduce a new partner to your children?
Well, Lisa, there's no one right answer for this, but I'll give you some guidelines that I think will help. I really feel like it depends on a couple things. How long have you been divorced? Is it brand new to your kids? Is it brand new to you? How old are your kids? And there's no right age that makes it easier for them or harder necessarily either. You know your kids better than anyone. But how adjusted are they to the fact that you and their other parent are no longer together? If they're not at least at some level of ease with that, it may be too soon to try to bring another adult into the picture and expect anything magical to happen. But beyond those things, I really encourage adults that were formerly married to set a time frame on how long you are with a new partner before you introduce them to your children. For me, I decided that 6 months was a good time frame. That would give me time to get to know them. They wouldn't, I wouldn't be parading a whole bunch of different partners in front of my children, which they can find confusing. If they're young, they might think, how many people are going to try to replace my other parent. They may, also start to question your moral judgment if they're older. And if you're wanting to set an example for them, then that's certainly not something you want to impose on them. So find a way to minimize the number of people that you plan to introduce them to. And for me, setting a time frame, how many people was I going to meet and maybe only go on one date with? And those people didn't need to meet my children.
Sure.
I really wanted to make sure I knew them because after all, this is a stranger to my child. So I want to make sure I can trust them, that I'm keeping my child safe. And also, I think it's real important that another way to minimize that number of people you introduce your children to, make sure you're in a committed relationship with them and that you do see this person staying in your life for some time. Because, if you're constantly introducing your child to new people, they may grow an affection for one of them, and then you didn't even plan to keep them around, or they didn't plan to keep you around. So figure out whether you're in a committed and exclusive relationship. And again, and I think even maybe more importantly, make sure they agree it's time. So that other partner, do they think it's a good time to meet your children? If they're like, oh, well, I thought we were just messing around, it's, you wouldn't want to have already introduced your child to them, because now you've got this really awkward situation that you're setting up.
Yeah, because you don't want them to, have gone through the loss of their both parents in the home and then get attached to someone, and now that person walks away as well. And it doesn't work out. And I love that you mentioned the safety aspect, because that's something that I always would worry about. There's a lot of potential pedophiles, people out there, groomers who look for situations, especially women alone in divorce, so that they can get to the children. And, that's something not a lot of people talk about, but it's very real. And you need to be careful who you bring in your home. You really need to be careful.
It is.
Oh, okay. So now you kind of set the scene for us, but how should you introduce them once you feel that, this is a good time, both people are on board, it seems like this relationship is going to go farther? When do you introduce that new partner to your children?
Well, let me give you a couple ways I would suggest not doing it. So
let's do and don't show. So that's good.
Right. There you go. Don't do it by accident. At least work to avoid accidental introductions. Like, you don't want your kids to come home from school and your new partner is sitting on the couch in their home. Because again, this is a stranger to them. So that could be very upsetting or off-putting. And don't have them, answer your phone, answer your door, because those could all set you up for those accidental introductions. The reason accidents are not a good idea, you don't give anyone a chance to adjust to what's coming at them. And it just isn't fair to set people up for an potentially emotional upheaval like that without some fair warning to get ready for that. Wow. So for the same reason, I also suggest not doing introductions in front of others. If the child is in a situation, let's say you go to their soccer games and you're like, hey, why don't you come along and you can meet Joey after his game's over? I just think it doesn't give the child space to have an emotional reaction. You may think how your child is going to react, but putting them under that additional stress of doing it, in front of others can be embarrassing for them. It can cause all kinds of problems that I think you could be better served if you plan something that is really apart and separate from others being involved. As far as what type of activities, it of course should be something that you all can appreciate doing. So pick an activity, whether you're an outdoorsy sort and you like to go hiking, or maybe you like to go bowling. If you're an indoorsy person and you and your children and your new partner are on board with it, this is going to sound like a pun, but you could play a board game on board with a board game. Maybe you like to go out to dinner. Now, I'd say, again, if you're going to go to dinner, don't meet at the restaurant, meet away from that restaurant setting, and then, accompany each other to dinner as a group. But I really think it's a good idea to pick an activity where you can talk, because the idea here is to let everyone get to know each other. And so for that reason, maybe a movie isn't a great choice unless you're going to meet ahead of that for a little bit, maybe for a snack or something before you go in. But any activity where there's an opportunity for people to converse and get to know each other and start establishing some level of comfort. But be sure to keep your expectations in check. When you maybe fall in love with someone new, you're sure everyone else is going to love them, but try to be realistic. They may eventually fall in love with them, but it may not happen in the first few moments they meet. It may not happen for years, and it may not ever happen. So just keep reasonable expectations and go with the flow there, and give yourself a little, grace and some patience with it.
Good advice. Very good advice. I love the don't spring it on them by surprise ideas. Nobody likes something like that, especially in a situation that is so sensitive here, right? So giving it some space and in a private setting is a wonderful idea.
Well, and I think one more thing I'll add to that is, there are spontaneous people in the world, and maybe your new partner is one of those people. So they want to surprise you at the soccer game they heard you're going to and say, oh, I'm here to meet your son or whatever. I would maybe proactively establish some ground rules around that. Hey, look, we've decided that, I've decided that I would like to make sure to kind of more proactively plan any introductions that we have between you and my children. So I know that I attend certain events with them, and I just want you to, be mindful of not showing up without me knowing that's going to happen. And let's talk about it ahead of time.
Right. Yeah. Get everyone prepared.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Very good. So what about the situation where, you're on the other side of it. Now you're seeing your ex has a new partner. How do you suggest handling that with your children?
Well, handle it with yourself first, because at the onset of hearing this, even if it's someone you feel like you're over, you're past the romantic relationship that you had with a former partner, when you hear the finalization of it secured with this new partner coming into the picture, it may still feel like a dagger's being, driven into your heart of what was once, a promising relationship that you took vows to keep. So don't be surprised if you feel that way. But give yourself a little opportunity to adjust to that news. If you come upon this information haphazardly, like maybe they didn't tell you proactively that they're dating someone or that they're in a new relationship, don't assume that they had bad intentions. Like, they may be hiding it from you for admirable reasons. If you can just give them the benefit of the doubt, as opposed to assuming, wow, they're, hiding something from me. Maybe they feared your reaction, or maybe they were somehow protecting you from having a reaction to it. But the new person represents an opportunity. If you can look at them as an opportunity to create an ally, a part of your parenting team that can be an asset to you and your co-parent, it will put you in a more positive place as you take on the idea of the threat you might feel from the new person, and how that might make you feel uneasy.
I think that's important. At Divorce Town and in my private practice at Divorce Money Matters, we're advocates for peaceful, civilized, amicable, low-cost divorce, right? Keeping all of that in mind and keeping the fabric of the family as intact as possible. Might look different on the other side of it, but you're still a family. And especially when you have children, you are connected for life. So making an ally of whatever new partner comes into the relationship is critical for everyone's mental health. You don't want your child to feel torn between wanting to go see the other parent and liking their new partner and being
Right.
allegiant to you. Doesn't have to be either or, it can be both. And you'll also find that it will make things a lot simpler and less stressful if you can speak to the new partner on the other side and share concerns or share things that are happening and get them on board with, taking care of your children when they're in their care, excuse me. So I can't agree with you more about that. Make an ally. Allies are wonderful in life. Even if you don't like the person, you still have to deal with them. Right.
Well, and the fact is, they're probably going to be spending time, possibly even alone with your children. So, get to know them. And another thing too is be careful if your child starts to, tell you things about this new person that you're, I don't want to say alarmed by, because maybe alarmed is another situation, but they think they're mean to them or whatever. Don't assume that your child's being 100% truthful about them, because they may be telling you those things to make you feel better about yourself or being protective of you. Or they may just, have not grown any affinity for them yet. I would suggest, if you hear things that you feel are a little disconcerting, that you try to verify that directly with them, if you've established any level of rapport with them, or with your ex. Ask them what what they're hearing at their house. I'd also say, don't badmouth them, and don't allow your kids to do it either. If you think about it as, what would you want your kids to do when they're not at your house in regard to you? Would you want them to try to win favor with this new person by saying disparaging things about you? Probably not. So put behavior out there that models the type of behavior you want to see reflected back to you and your children, and in that new partner that your ex has.
That's very good advice. And part of this also is that sometimes the new partner may not be someone perfect that you would hope to be their new co-parent or co-partner.
Yeah.
And that can make things more difficult, but you have control over how you react, how you behave, the things that you say, and you can make the situation worse, or you can deal with it as best as it is. So, we don't have control what goes on the other side, but just like going through the divorce, we have control over our own emotions, how we react to things, the things that we say or don't say, the nuances of the rolling of the eyes and things like that. Keep that under control. It's going to come back and make life more difficult for you and your children.
Yeah. It's funny you say the eye rolling thing. I'm a infamous eye roller if I'm not careful. So, I found a strategy that I go with. It's to just really intently stare forward if I feel the the reflex to do the eye roll thing, because
That's funny.
it is what do they call that? A passive aggressive sort of move, right?
Right.
And it certainly doesn't bring anything positive to the table.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway.
Well, some people, I guess it's just a natural kind of habit is what you're saying. And you've learned a way to kind of curb that. So that's wonderful. So how can the newly recoupled co-parent make this change go more smoothly? I think we've talked about that a little bit, but any more tips on that?
Well, as a new couple, you can introduce this new partner to the ex before the kids. Why do I say that? Like, what do you owe them? Well, let's remember they're your child's primary parent. And if you plan to introduce your child to someone that is a stranger to the other parent, wouldn't it be a courteous move to maybe let them know that this is going to happen and give them an opportunity to even meet them ahead of time? It will show that you're looking out for your child's safety, that you're considering them as your parenting teammate in the equation. And, it can set you up for a much better road ahead. Also, if you did agree, let's say, to any type of timeframes. I mentioned timeframes earlier, and I said I had a 6-month time frame. Now, in my case, we didn't necessarily agree. Okay, we're both going to do 6-month timeframes, but I set my time frame as 6 months. I think my former spouse was a little more liberal with it, but I think it was probably 3 months, maybe for him. I'm not sure it was a hard and fast rule. But whatever the scenario was, in my case, I made that commitment to 6 months. I told my ex that that was what I was sticking to, hoping maybe he would follow in suit. And I kept that commitment. So if you do make commitments to each other, keep those. Also, with the new couple, you've got the kids involved now. I would suggest making sure to encourage ongoing interactions between the new person and the children. This will break down barriers that make either of them feel like outsiders to this new relationship. If you're expecting to be in a long-term relationship with them, they need to get to know your kids. And they are not going to love feeling like an outsider. I know I felt like an outsider for a fair amount of time when I got into a new relationship with someone, and especially when they came to my house, and it's like they're on my turf,
Yeah.
and I'm the one feeling like an outsider. It was just really unsettling. So there's definitely things you can do there to make them feel more a part of things. Don't have side conversations where you're whispering off in the corner. Because then the new partner's gonna be like, what are you talking about? What's that? Are you talking about me? And they could make all kinds of silly assumptions that aren't even true. So don't set yourself up for those things. And again, disallowing bad mouthing of anyone. Really, I just don't think it brings anything to the table. Some people can find that to be fun. I just think it's too destructive. And it's not what you would hope someone is doing when you're not there.
I agree with that. And also, we haven't touched on it. But what about when there are children on the new partner and introducing the new children to your children?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the same rules apply for figuring out when it's the right time to do that and how you might plan that out. I think when you've gotten past the initial introduction, I think there's a few things to watch out for. I mean, you need to really establish some expectations across the board. For everyone's going to show everyone respect. We're all on the same team here. And we don't have to all love each other immediately, but let's get to know each other. I really think that you can observe what's going on, check in with your kids, check in with the other kids, see how everyone's feeling. And one of the things that I think we really have to be careful about is favoritism. We all think our kids are perfect, or maybe we don't, but we think they're pretty good. And we tend to be more critical of other people's kids. And just be aware that you're probably going to do that. You may not even realize you're doing it. So, be careful to not set yourself up to look like that evil step person or step parent to be, because that's going to get you nowhere with a new relationship with the new kids. But I think the same holds true for the rules with, it just gets more complicated the more of these relationships you add in. So now you've got other kids and you've got their other parent too to consider.
Right.
So just don't forget to consider everyone.
Yeah.
And try to remember what you would appreciate if you were in any one of those other roles and act accordingly.
I think that's great advice. I think, in my lifetime, some of the saddest things I've seen are new partners after a divorce, meeting, wanting to become, new long-term partners, get married, whatever. But the children were never primed right, or are just not on board with it. And I've seen people break up because of the kids. So
Yeah.
I think what you're bringing to the table here, Teresa, is so important for everyone's sanity and for the long-term relationship that you hope will develop, so that your children are happy, you're happy, the other kids are happy, whoever it may be that's involved in this, just trying to keep everyone in a good place and being considerate. I think that goes a long way.
It does. And again, be realistic. I think I had some pretty grand ideas in my head when I recoupled, and my now husband, he introduced his kids to me. And I remember the first meeting of them, and his son sat on the couch with me. He was only about 7 years old at the time. And he said, "I think you're very nice." And I was like, "Oh, good. We're heading straight for family 2.0. Everything's perfect." And then there were lots of difficulties along the road. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So, there's going to be difficulties. There's going to be adjustments. It could be with the kids. It could be with the ex-spouse. It could be with any number of people. It could be with your new partner. One thing I caution new partners that are not the parents in the scenario, not the primary parent, to be careful of is to be mindful of your boundaries. And with that, I mean, there's a couple things there. Don't introduce yourself as "I'm your new mommy," or, and the primary parent shouldn't introduce them as that. And people do that.
Oh my.
But it's super confusing to a child. It's like, wait a minute, what happened to my other mommy? Are they going away? And if they're older kids, they may get really defensive with that. So it's just, find another label to associate with them. And the new person really should play the role of being more of a friend and a confidant to the kids that they've been introduced to than a disciplinarian, other than in situations where imminent danger is involved. I mean, if there's a safety scenario, you can't wait to go get, another parent involved to say, "Hey, can you go tell Sarah that she shouldn't be doing this if she's about to, burn herself," or something like that.
Sure.
But when it comes to just your average everyday sort of discipline, defer to the primary parent for those situations, and let them know what your concern is. But don't feel like you need to be a doormat either. And that can be a trap you can fall into, because you so want to stay with this person. And you may think, well, I just need to get through this until they're grown. Well, newsflash, co-parenting and step parenting are pretty much forever, as long as you plan to stay with that person at least. So even after they're grown, there's going to be plenty of interactions that you'll have with them where you will want to be considered in a respectful way, treated with dignity, and included in the family.
Well, Teresa, you have come with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and thank you for sharing with us today. It's been a wonderful show. Why don't you tell folks how they can reach out to you, or what your website is, whatever information you'd like to provide?
Sure. Well, my website this is really unique. Teresa Harlow at teresaharlow.com. Actually, that was my email address. Let me try that again. It's teresaharlow.com. And I'm pretty sure if you misspell it, it'll still come to me, because I've bought several of those domains. But I wanted to make it easy for you to find me. And I did give you
there with you.
Yeah. And I did give you my email. It is Teresa Harlow at teresaharlow.com. My book is Combative to Collaborative, the Co-Parenting Code. If you are a co-parent or step parent and could use some help in that area. The book covers all stages of co-parenting, whether you're new to the game or have been at it for years, or maybe can't seem to get on the same page at all. And it could have been over 10 years. You're going to find some help in the book. And besides that, I also offer private co-parent coaching. I'm a mediator in the state of Ohio, and I speak on this topic just as I'm doing today.
Well, we're very thankful for your time and for starting our new year off in such a great way. Thank you again, Teresa. And before we go, I am going to share some information and resources that you can get at Divorcetown USA, which is the roadmap that you see here. And it includes an ebook, which explains all of these options and helps you understand which one is best for you and your family, and outlines other professionals and resources you may need access to along the way. We also offer there many free articles and videos, and our marketplace features some of our favorites, products and services that we found to help you through the divorce process. Next up, at divorcemoneymatters.com, you can download your free divorce financial fitness kit. And I created this to help you get better organized and take more control of your money matters during your divorce. And this kit includes an ebook, a working Excel spreadsheet of all the documents that you need to gather when you're going through divorce, and a list of 50 must-ask questions when you're ready to consult with an attorney. At Divorcetown USA, we also sponsor a divorce help and hope group. It's a virtual group through meetup.com, and we meet once or twice a month via Zoom, and meeting dates and times are always posted on Divorcetown USA in the events section. And next week, we're going to be sitting down with my friend, founder of the International Child-Centered Divorce Month herself, Rosalind Sadaka. Rosalind will update us on this year's free products and resources available to co-parents from all over the world. If you have kids of any ages, you won't want to miss this episode. And so we hope that you found this week, with this week's episode of the divorce, I gotta find my tongue, folks. Good thing this show's almost over. We hope you found this week's episode of Divorce Do's and Don'ts helpful, and we look forward to seeing you all next week and every week as we continue improving the way the world divorces, one family at a time.